Okay, so as I've mentioned, this is going to be a video where I go through and actually derive or develop the quadratic formula from standard form. So I kind of started this at the beginning of the other video, but the idea is we're taking standard form, which is ax squared plus bx plus c, and we're going to complete the square. So the first thing we do when we complete the square is that we need to make sure it is the a value is a 1. Well, the way we guarantee that a is 1 is you divide a by itself, because a divided by a gives you 1, so you get x squared plus b over a times x plus c over a is equal to 0. Now, the next step on completing the square is that I would need to move this c over a to the right side, because I need to make a perfect square trinomial on the left side, so you get x squared plus b over a times x is equal to a negative c over a. And then what I have to do is I have to take this b over a, I need to divide it by 2, and then square that. So b over a divided by 2 gives you b divided by 2a. And then we're going to square this. Well, when you square that, you get b squared. Well, 2 times 2 is 4. A squared would just be a squared, so you get b squared over 4a squared. So I need to then add this to both sides of our equation. So plus b squared over 4a squared. And then what I can do is I can go ahead and factor the left side, because it is now a perfect square trinomial in which it becomes x, and then we take whatever we had inside of here that we squared, so x plus b over 2a squared is equal to, and then what I'm going to do in this step is that I'm going to take this and get a common denominator. I'm going to go ahead and do that in this step, just so when I end up having to take the square root, I'll have a numerator and a denominator all in one. So to get a common denominator, I need the negative c over a to have 4a squared. So that means that I actually need to take and multiply the top and bottom of this by 4a. When we multiply that by 4a, what happens is that you will end up getting, and I'll go ahead and jot this off to the side, we have 4ac over 4a squared, and then we'd have the plus b squared over 4a squared. And actually, this should be a negative because there was a negative. And now another thing that I'm going to go ahead and do is flip the order of these. So it's actually b squared minus 4ac, which maybe now you're starting to go, this is sounding very familiar to what we had in the quadratic formula. So this right side, we have went ahead and got a common denominator by multiplying this negative c over a, the numerator and denominator both by 4a, which gave us this step. And then I went ahead and just combined them into one fraction, and I changed the order, so it's b squared minus 4ac. So we're going to have b squared minus 4 times a times c, all of this over 4a squared. So the next step of completing the square would be to take the square root of both sides of our equation. On the left side, we will be left with x plus b over 2a. On the right side, what happens is that the numerator, there's really nothing I can do because I can't take the square root of b squared minus 4ac, so it becomes plus or minus, because I have a positive and negative, b squared minus 4 times a times c. And then in the denominator, though, 4 is a perfect square, a squared is a perfect square, so you can actually take the square root of this, and that gives you 2a. Last thing I need to do is I need to move this plus b over 2a to the other side because I'm trying to solve for x. So we'll subtract the b over 2a over. And when you do that, I already have a common denominator, so this can actually just move up into the numerator, and we get x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a, which this at the bottom here is the quadratic formula. And so that is actually how we were able to derive or develop the quadratic formula, is just by taking our standard form and completing the square.